Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast, episode 10 of the Tough Cover Podcast. Welcome. It is Saturday, March 13th, and there is a full slate of basketball. This is your host, Mark Henry Jr. Welcome to the 10th ever edition on the Painted Lines on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Thanks for jumping in with us early. Thanks to all of those who are watching later. Y'all are all a part of the Tough Cover Clique. And as part of the Tough Cover Clique, I want you guys to go follow at The Painted Lines on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube and Twitch. Please, last but not least, follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter. And please follow at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Haven't gotten Instagram up and running in a while, but we're going to get it up and running for March Madness this coming week. We're going to do some sort of contest. So we are going to we're going to let you guys know. We're going to keep you updated on that. And on the same lines, please leave your picks in the comments, and I will let you know my thoughts. We will be doing a contest soon involving you guys, like I said, and making picks in the comments or maybe on Twitter or Instagram. Not sure what the best if you guys have any ideas to make it the easiest way possible, let me know. We will keep you updated on that. But for the meantime, please leave as many picks in the comments as possible. Before we get to my action from last night, let's do a fit check. I'm rocking with the Wichita State Shockers on my shirt because even though they let my man Rico Bosco down against the spread and didn't cover, they kept my Wichita State plus 1,400 to win the AAC ticket alive. Was not an inspiring performance for Wichita State backers or future players, but a quick note to Cincinnati: don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. You don't want to go to war with the Shockers. We'll get to that later. Behind me, I've got the SEC semifinal matchup with Arkansas and LSU. I'm just rooting for both teams to have fun. I can't pick a side. They've both been so good to me. I will be betting on the winner of that game in the SEC final against Bama or Tennessee. That's for damn sure. I love both of those teams, Arkansas and LSU, and if either team make their way, especially to play Tennessee in the SEC final, I will be jumping on the opportunity to bet on that. Swig of coffee for the working man, and we're back. Now let's check my action out from last night and from yesterday as a whole. It's a Saturday, so it's a battle. That's how it works. Let's go to the Tough Cover Pod tracker. We are 32-25 plus 14.5 units so far on the podcast since March 1st when it started. The best bet moved to 5-4 yesterday, which is not great. Especially since we started 4-0, but 5-4, we'll still take it. It's still profitable. 32-25, we'll still take it. 14.5 units, we'll definitely take that. So let's move on to my slate from yesterday. Started off with Purdue plus 1.5 versus Ohio State. Went to overtime. Purdue was getting blown out early. It was crazy that this game even made it to overtime. I was definitely happy to see that, but I almost wish it didn't because it gave me hope that Purdue was going to make it happen since they had so much momentum. But Ohio State just shot the lights out in overtime, and Purdue could not hang with the Buckeyes on offense, which is usually a game that I pick the other way on. But I'm so high on Purdue, and this game did not make me feel lower on Purdue. It feels like they played really poorly, besides Travion Williams in the second half, really. He played really poorly in the first half. So it feels like a couple things go differently in that game, and Purdue wins in regulation. But that was my first loss of the day. And my second loss of the day, back-to-back, off to an 0-2 start, was Florida plus 3.5 versus Tennessee. They lost by 12. They were in it the whole game, and then Tennessee pulled away at the end, kind of like the Florida-Tennessee game from last week. I guess Tennessee is just a bad matchup for Florida. That's my bad. I shouldn't have – I lost it last week and should not have just said F it and went right back to the well since it didn't work for me last week. But I did. Sometimes you'll get bit like that. So 0-2 start. I'm panicking after a bad day I had on Thursday. But the next game was Oklahoma State Baylor, which was my game of the night. Or not my game of the night, but it was my most important game because I had two different bets on it. I had Oklahoma State team total over 69.5. They scored 83. They won 83-74 to cover plus 9.5 and to win outright. I know a lot of people on my Twitter had Oklahoma State money line, but I was hyped to see Cade Cunningham step up. Cade Cunningham is my hero, as you'll hear me talk about later for my picks for tonight. But I just love Oklahoma State. I love Cade Cunningham. I love Likely. So I I was happy that I didn't get deterred from going with them because of how good Baylor is, because Baylor is not quite the same Baylor team everyone thinks Baylor is. So Oklahoma State was the right bet, and the team total was the right bet. Memphis plus 3.5. This was a crazy game versus the Denver Nuggets. Ja Morant and Jokic were going back and forth and back and forth. It was an awesome, awesome finish until the refs absolutely screwed the Grizzlies on the last play of the game. It didn't affect me because I had plus 3.5 and they lost by 1 and covered. But with 1 second left, Ja Morant, or 2-3 seconds left, maybe Ja Morant rushed the paint and gets fouled pretty clearly. And they call it. The ref put his hands up for a foul, and then someone else on the Grizzlies comes up and wraps up Jokic to try to foul him because they thought the play was still going. And the ref pretended like that was the call he made when there was a foul to give for Denver. So it was really weird. It was a really weird call. To me, it seemed like the wrong call 100%. It seemed like Ja Morant got fouled. And if I was a Memphis fan, I'd be going nuts. At least, even if he didn't get fouled, you can't put your hand up for a foul call when something happens, and then something that happens 3 seconds later, you can't call that foul. But, that's basketball officiating, and it's at its all-time worst right now. I can't ever remember a time where officiating at the college level and at the NBA level is just so downright terrible. I just can't imagine that this is the best they can do. Maybe they need more refs. Maybe they need more people to get in the spots that people can't see. Or maybe they just need to do way more instant replay, which no one wants because it takes forever as of now. So it's just an absolute mess. Officiating needs to get better. But I'm happy that I covered Memphis plus 3.5. It was the right bet, and they honestly should have won the game. My last 2 bets, this one hurt. UConn money line. They lose to Creighton 59-56. That was just a knock them down, drag them out fight. And at the end, they had a perfect 3 to hit and to send it to overtime. They were wide open. They had 2 really good looks. Couldn't make either of them go. Them's the breaks. I mean, UConn's been so good in clutch games and in close time all year that you feel like when it's a close game against Creighton, who hasn't necessarily been, you think UConn has the edge there. But that's basketball. UConn didn't make the shots. It's a make or miss league. It's a make or miss game. And UConn didn't put the ball through the bucket, and they lost because they scored 56 points. You can't score 56 points and expect to win in a big game against a ranked team. So I still believe in UConn going forward. Booknight had a bad game, but certainly makes me a little more pessimistic on their chances to take down a 1 or 2 if they're a 7 or an 8 seed. Or I don't know if that's necessarily where they're slotting in, but it's probably about where they're at. And then getting to my last game, which was the make or break, either could have sent me either way. I was exactly break even, and this is my last game of the night. LSU money line at Arkansas. Shout out to LSU. Go Tigers. So LSU actually let Ole Miss score 83 points, which I thought was shocking, or 73 points, which I thought was shocking because Ole Miss haven't scored that much at all as of late. So I thought that Ole Miss would not score with LSU, which they kind of did. LSU just scored a little bit too much, 1 bucket too much, and LSU won the game. I think LSU was kind of up the whole game. They blew a 7-point lead with one of the worst officiating calls I've ever seen. Brandon Walker called it the worst call in college basketball history. He was tweeting it out. Everyone go check out our little Twitter interaction, the video he tweeted. It's absolutely insane that they called a foul on LSU against Ole Miss in that situation. So that is my Tough Cover Pod tracker. 4-3 on the night, up 2.5 units on the night, up 14.5 units on the month. So without any further ado, to the thousands watching on the stream and the millions watching around the world on YouTube. Let's get ready to gamble. Now let's get to my straight bets. At 11 a.m. I have UMass Lowell plus 3.5 at Hartford for 1.5 units. The American East Conference on the line. The winner goes to the tournament, and they actually play this game in Hartford due to them being the higher seed. I don't think a lot of people know that they do that in the American East Conference, but both of these teams have already went on the road to get to this title game. UMass Lowell had to win twice on the road already. What's one more? Heading into the semifinal game, UMass Lowell was plus 1,800 to win this tournament, while Hartford was plus 1,400, proving that even when these teams were in the Final Four of their conference, the odds makers didn't believe in either even to win the American East, let alone to get to the tournament. So I think UMass Lowell is the better team here, and I think if it was on a neutral court, they'd be favored. So I'll fade the home court advantage of Hartford here. There's not going to be fans. I don't think Hartford's home court advantage is anything special. It's not like UMass Lowell's traveling a far way to get there. So I like UMass Lowell here. These teams split their games to start the year. If you exclude the Vermont Catamounts, who are the class of the American East generally, UMass Lowell would have led the conference in offensive efficiency, while Hartford would have led the conference in defensive efficiency. So this is a styles make fights situation. I think it's going to be the Riverhawks' offensive power running right into Hartford's stifling defense. And while UMass Lowell will try to run and gun a little bit more, they were second in tempo in the conference. Hartford will grind it out. They were first in the conference in points per game against at 62 points per game. Whoever loses the pace battle will lose the game. UMass Lowell defense is just too poor to win if they're trying to grind it out and play a game like that. They're just not a good enough defense, and Hartford's offense just not a good enough offense, too anemic to win in a shootout. So it's really gonna depend, which style makes the fight. Like I always say with these types of matchups, styles make fights. UMass Lowell finished first in the conference in free throw rate at 36.6% and free throw attempts at 20 per game, leading the conference in three-point field goal percentage. The most important part of the UMass Lowell team is senior guard Obadiah Noel. On the season, he's averaging 20.6 points per game on 49.6% shooting from the field. In his three tournament games so far, he's scoring 25 points per game on 54% shooting and 40% shooting from three. Anytime you can back a guy who's shooting 40% from three or above and who's named Obadiah, I'm all in. I'm all in on Obadiah. So I think I'm perfectly willing to back UMass Lowell here, pretty much perfectly, because they have a guy named Obadiah Noel, and he's an absolute beast. I watched him one time, and he impressed the hell out of me. He looked like he could have played on some legitimate conferences. Trying to market the stream to people real quick. Again, folks, please leave comments in there. Please leave some picks so I can take your picks, give you some opinions if I like your pick or if I'm on your pick or if I'm fading your pick or why I didn't take that game. So if you have any questions or comments or even just anything, please leave them in the chat. So UMass Lowell won the first game here by going 18 for 25 from the foul line against Hartford's 8 for 12. Then Hartford won the free throw battle in the second game, going 17 for 21 from the line against UMass Lowell's 3 for 6. Whoever wins this free throw battle will probably win the game, and the edge goes to UMass Lowell. In the American East this year, I believe UMass Lowell was first in free throw rate and last in defensive free throw rate. I'm riding with UMass Lowell, like I said, mainly because of Obadiah Noel, but also due to their tempo and their free throw shooting. So again, UMass Lowell plus 3.5. That line's moved to 2.5, wherever that's at now, and I couldn't love it anymore. Plus 3.5 is where I got it, and I'm hype about that. So if you want to take it now, I would still take +1, +1.5, +2 money line, whatever you'd like. But I definitely am happy that I got it at plus 3.5. So moving on to my play of the day, my lock of the night, my best bet at 6 o'clock. I have Oklahoma State plus 1.5 versus Texas for 2 units. What can I say? I love the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Cade Cunningham is my hero. Kenny Boynton is the man. Likely is a baller. They came through yet again for me last night, this time on the team total and the spread. 8 straight games, Oklahoma State has scored 70-plus points. 12 of 14 games, they have scored 70-plus points. And 18 of the last 21 games, Oklahoma State has scored 70-plus points. Texas wants to play their games in the 60s. I think Oklahoma State just has too much firepower and will have too much scoring for the Longhorns. Let me pull up this comment. Wilkerson. Mark, been super busy, man. Tennessee +5. I'm actually I'm on Bama money line, but we'll get to that. That's part of a parlay. I don't hate Tennessee +5. They do like to muck up games, so I can completely see them covering the spread. Weird situation with Oklahoma State coming off of its 2 biggest wins of the season, and honestly, their win over Baylor on a neutral court is one of the most impressive wins in the country this year, in my opinion. And then you look at Texas, who advanced here due to KU's COVID issue. They did beat Texas Tech 2 days ago. Will Oklahoma State have momentum or fatigue? Will Texas come out flat or rested? I'm just taking OK State because I think they're the better team here. These teams played 2 close games and both won their home games. I love this as a spot for Cade Cunningham to remind all the casuals tuning in, because it's finally March, that he's the guy in this country and the guy in this draft. Go win the Big 12, young fella, on the biggest of stages. In Texas, last 4 games, they are shooting 45% from deep, and I've been stroking it from 3. But Oklahoma State is the best perimeter defense in the Big 12, as I've said on this podcast the last 3 days, and one of the best in the country, as they showed yesterday, with holding Baylor to 6 for 28, allowing for a Cowboys win. If you can hold Baylor to 6 for 28, you're going to win every single time. In the first 2 matchups, Oklahoma State held Texas to 22% from 3 combined, and Oklahoma State's a much better team than they were when they played Texas, and a much better perimeter defense than they were when they played Texas. If and when this game is close down the stretch, you'll wish you bet on the team with Cade Cunningham. Oklahoma State plus 1.5 versus Texas for 2 units. Best bet of the night. Lock it in. So let's get to my 9 o'clock bet. I like Western Kentucky money line versus North Texas for 2 units. Western Kentucky has been a team I've liked to bet on all year. The Hilltoppers have just been a better team, in my opinion, than the Mean Green. The main reason I love Western Kentucky and almost made them the best bet is because they have a greater than 5% disparity between them and North Texas at the free throw line, while attempting 6 more free throws. Another huge advantage they have here is points in the paint, which is allowed mostly by their massive advantage on the offensive glass with stud center Bassey. These teams actually haven't matched up yet this year, which I think gives a potential value to be had. I think Western Kentucky would have won and would have been more favored in this spot had they beaten them earlier in the season, but instead it's now +1 either way. 1-point spread has been floating between each way. In 3 games in the conference tournament, North Texas opponents have scored 56, 55, and 48 points. I just don't think North Texas will be able to hold Western Kentucky in that area to the pace they play at. Western Kentucky has beaten teams like Memphis, URI, and most impressively Alabama with games in the 70s and the 80s. I think Western Kentucky's a tournament team, and I think they can make some noise in the tournament. I think they have to prove it tonight in the CUSA Championship, but I think that they will punch their ticket to the tournament. After a mini slump to end the season, North Texas found its game again just in time. However, the fact that they weren't great at the end of the season cost them the double bye that Western Kentucky then took. That means North Texas will be playing its 4th game in 4 days. North Texas has played 6 players in their last 2 games due to injuries and due to being shorthanded. That will catch up to them today here against the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Western Kentucky money line over North Texas for 2 units. Let's get the Pan Krabby in the comments. Michigan, Ohio State total at 143. Is this a trap? That is really low. I looked at that game, saw the line, and I think it's a stay away in terms of the sides. I didn't even look at total. I'm actually seeing 142.5. Let's pull up some trends here. I mean, the last 2 Ohio State games have went over. It's actually, these teams are not quite as over teams as of late as you'd think. It's a little different because Michigan has scored, before their last game, scored 64, 69, 53, and 73, which isn't very high for them. I'm going to stay away, but I like what you're thinking. I get what you're saying. I don't think it's a trap. I just think that, I guess maybe it is a trap. I just think Michigan's not quite as high scoring as people tend to think, or as you would think if you just watched the Ohio State-Michigan game from earlier this year, which was one of the games of the year for sure. I expect it to be another 2 great games in the Big Ten with Iowa, Illinois, and Ohio State-Michigan. I'm just staying away from both. JC Hani. How do I feel about B-Walk's Ohio State money line pick? I actually woke up a bit late today, so I haven't really checked the Barstool guys' picks today, to be honest. I made my picks last night anyway, so I didn't check what B-Walk said. I know he has Ohio State to win the Big Ten, so he's probably just really rooting for that, to be honest. But I don't think it's crazy. I think Ohio State could 100% win. I had Ohio State money line like a month ago when they played, and I thought Ohio State could have won the game if they could have held Dickinson down at all. And if the refs don't let Dickinson get away with what they let Dickinson get away with last game against Ohio State, I think it could be a much closer game, and I think it's anyone's game. I just can't. I lost way too much money betting against Michigan this year. I can't do it. I'm staying away. Dan Krabby, Livers out. That helps. Oh wow, I didn't know Livers was out. To be honest, that does definitely help. Ohio State. Their money line's probably like plus 210. Let's check out what their money line is. Let's pull it up. They play at 1:00 on CBS. Plus 220. Yeah, that's definitely good value. No matter what, it's good value. If Livers is out, it's weird that they haven't adjusted that line. I saw it opened at Michigan -6, so it's weird to me that Livers is out and the line moved up to 6.5. That could be a trap. I don't know what's going on with that. I do know Ohio State obviously played a grind them out overtime game with the Purdue Boilermakers yesterday, but I 6.5 points is probably too many. I'm just gonna stay away. Chris Rakovitz, my guy, gives picks every day in here. Flyers versus Capitals over 5.5 goals. Bruins money line parlay. You're making me look up some fucking hockey stats, Rako. God damn it. Let's pull it up. Let's do some research. We got the Philadelphia Flyers playing the Washington Capitals. The over/under is 5.5. The last 2 games have went over for Washington. The last 4 out of 5 games have went over for the Flyers. You look at their last couple of games: 8 goals, 9 goals, 4 goals, 7 goals, 7 goals. I like that a lot, Rako. I like that Flyers bet a lot. I might even hop. No, I won't hop on because there's too much goddamn basketball on. But you almost got me. I like that bet a lot. Now let's check out the Boston Bruins. They play at 1:00, -192. Yeah, I don't know enough about. I'm better with looking up research for NHL overs and unders than I am for money lines. But I like that Flyers Capitals over a lot. I do know the Bruins are pretty good, so hopefully you're solid there. Not betting on them, but keeping my eye on Arsenal tomorrow. The Gooners, they've been on a roll. I actually haven't seen much Zion Troops on the timeline. I feel like they do more content when it's negative and when they lose than they do when they win. But maybe it's just people retweet it and I see it more on my timeline when it's funny, when they're freaking out, and when it's negative. But I'm happy for you guys, you Gooners out there, that Arsenal is on a roll. At one point this year, Troops and Zal were saying they were going to get relegated. Clay C, 23, very juicy, but I like it, -130. I'm not sure what that means, but I think you were talking about when I was talking about Alabama money line earlier this pod, or I'm not sure, but let me know in the comments if what is -130. And I'll look it up and give you some comments. So let's look at my next pick here. We got my last straight bet of the night with Grand Canyon plus 2.5 versus New Mexico State for 1.5 units. Shout out to Tyler Cintron if you're watching out there. I know you love this bet. These teams played twice and Grand Canyon won comfortably both times. Grand Canyon has been better all year and as of late. Grand Canyon has been a team I've been saying could give a 2, a 3, or a 4 seed trouble in the tournament, depending on where they're slotted, and how they get there is by winning this game and punching their ticket. I'm riding with the Grand Canyon Antelopes. The Grand Canyon Antelopes shoot the 3 better. They rebound the ball better. They move the ball more efficiently. I don't have a ton of research here, just going with the team that handled the other team twice and has been better all year. I don't care if it's a rat line, a trap line. Grand Canyon being plus 2.5 just doesn't make any sense. Grand Canyon plus 2.5 versus New Mexico State. Now let's finish it with a money line parlay, which I'm 3-1 on so far on the pod. Michigan. Yeah, Juwan Howard announced Isaiah Livers will be out indefinitely after an MRI following yesterday's Big Ten tournament quarterfinal against Maryland Bluefield, a stress injury to his right foot. I imagine that probably means that he's done for the year. So that's big for people who have Michigan futures. I know a lot of people on my Twitter timeline love Michigan to win the title. That definitely takes some wind out of those sails. But let's get to my money line parlay, which I'm 3-1 so far on the pod. All of them have been plus money, so that's super, super in the positive and a big part of why I'm up 14.5 units. So my bonus money line parlay, the first game starts at 1, the second game starts at 3 for 2 units. And Alabama, Wichita State money line parlay at plus 160. Both are 4 to 5 point favorites, and I like both teams to win. I don't have too much to say here. Bama has too much offense for the Vols, especially now that they're shorthanded. Bama could use this game as a springboard back into playing the type of basketball they were playing to start the year. Bama just has to shoot below average from three, honestly, and they'll be fine. They rely on three so heavily, which is dangerous, obviously. But against Tennessee, they just shouldn't have to make that many with how Tennessee scores. Bama beat Tennessee twice this year, and I expect them to make it a third. I love Wichita State to win and cover here against a terrible, awful Cincinnati Bearcats team. The only reason they won yesterday is because they had a mascot death. They're playing for the Bearcat, which Wichita only played Cincy once and manhandled them. Wichita is far better from the free throw line and far better from three, as well as having a massive advantage on the glass and a massive advantage in the turnover battle. If Bama loses, I will be putting 1.5 to 2 units on Wichita State to cover the spread. But if Bama wins, that means I have Wichita State plus 160 on the money line to make it to the AAC title game, in which I basically have Wichita State money line at plus 1,400 due to my AAC future on the Shockers. Like I said at the top of the pod, you don't want to go to war with the Shockers. Don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. Now let's run down my card, and I'll give a few leans before we head out of here. For anyone who's joining late, I'll run down my card for the day. UMass Lowell plus 3.5 at Hartford for 1.5 units. Oklahoma State plus 1.5 for 2 units versus Texas. That's my best bet of the day. I do know that the line has moved up to 2.5. That doesn't make me feel great, but I think Oklahoma State wins the game, so I'm fine taking money line. So I'm happy with 1.5. Western Kentucky money line versus North Texas. I think I have that for 2 units, and then Grand Canyon plus 2.5 over New Mexico State for 1.5 units. And last but not least, my two-way money line parlay, which would be my most profitable bet of the night. It's a 2-unit bet on the two-way money line parlay. Alabama, Wichita State money line parlay at plus 160. Now let's do. I didn't touch the NBA at all tonight. I'm gonna open it up. I saw 2 bets I liked, but I couldn't quite pull the trigger on, and they both moved. So let's talk NBA. The day game is the New York Knicks versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder are 5-point underdogs. I actually think Oklahoma City, there's some value to be had there. New York lets a lot of teams hang around, especially in the second half. So let's check the injury report, make sure I'm not missing anything pretty huge. Yeah, I mean, Shea's not playing. Yeah, I'm not. Never mind. Disregard what I just said about the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Toronto Raptors at the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte is minus 2.5 because of Toronto's shorthanded roster. They have a lot of guys out still. Pascal, Van Vliet, OG, all still out. McCall. But I think I really think that Charlotte would be like a 1 to 2 point dog here, and I would love them if Toronto was at full strength. But Toronto had that weird buzzer beater against them the other night. 2.5 points feels like a lot to me. I do feel like Toronto could keep it close even with their skeleton roster. So I almost went with Charlotte minus 2.5, but I ended up staying away. Detroit at Brooklyn. Brooklyn's an 11-point spread. Makes sense. 227.5. I almost want to take the over, but Detroit's not quite good enough on the over for me to ride with it, even with the Nets. Bucks 11-point favorite against the Wizards. I'm almost tempted to say Wizards plus 11, but they did play last night, so I'm staying away. This is the biggest lean I had, and it's moved like crazy. Sacramento at Atlanta. That game was originally like a 3.5-point favorite for Atlanta. Atlanta's now a 5-point favorite. I think Atlanta's definitely going to win that game. I just hate betting on Atlanta because I hate Atlanta personally. I don't like Trae Young. Everyone who knows me knows that. I'm not a Trae Young guy. I don't like his style of basketball. I don't like the style of basketball Atlanta plays. I don't like that they passed up on Luka. I don't like the offseason they had to surround Trae Young. But I think Sacramento, coming off of a win, is in a prime spot for a loss here. Atlanta's still riding high with their new coach. I think Atlanta definitely beats Sacramento. But at a 4.5-point spread, Atlanta, their defense just isn't good enough for me to rely on to ride to cover a 4.5-point spread or a 5-point spread as a favorite, even at home. But Atlanta money line, throw that in some parlays at the end if you want to. Portland at Minnesota, same type of deal. Portland should win, 4.5-point spread, but I'm not taking it. They're not quite good enough on defense for me to be confident to take a 4.5-point favorite here. Indiana at Phoenix. Phoenix at -7. I think Indiana might be an okay bet here at +7, but Phoenix should win. So you shouldn't bet on any dogs that are that short that you don't think are going to win. Dallas at Denver. every time that they play this year, I've been so wrong, so I have to stay away. 1.5-point spread. Denver on a back-to-back. You'd think Dallas makes some sense, but every time I've bet on, I think I've bet on. They've played like 2 or 3 times. It feels like they've played 100 times, but they've played 2 or 3 times, and I think I've bet on each game wrong. So it's hard for me to just go right back to the well and bet it. Now let's talk about some of the college basketball games that I might not have gotten to. LSU Arkansas behind me. Arkansas is a 3.5-point favorite. I like both teams so much I can't bet on them. I would take the points just because they're the points. I would probably side LSU plus 3.5, but I can't take that either way. Let's get to the comments here. Good morning. Shout out Kevin Cronin. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. Pan Krabby. Thanks, Mark, putting in the money line parlay. Hell yeah, brother. Plus 160 at 2 units. That's like it's a pretty big gain if we win. So let's hope we get to 4-1 on the money line parlays on the year. This is one game I did want to discuss and just put it out there into the universe. Utah State at San Diego State. San Diego State lost both games to Utah State this year, and I think they're a much better team. So I like San Diego State, but I'm nervous if the matchup just doesn't work for them. San Diego State's -2. I think they should win, and I think they're the better team here, like I said. But I just couldn't pull the trigger because Utah State was so good against them both games, in one of those 2 games blowing them out. So couldn't pull the trigger. In a Cinderella matchup of the ages here, Georgetown of all teams being a Cinderella. Georgetown at Creighton. Creighton's a 9-point dog. I can't believe I'm saying it, and maybe this is exactly when Georgetown will bow out as soon as I buy in, but I can see Georgetown getting a win here. Creighton wasn't they didn't impress me all that much against UConn. It was more being not impressed with UConn. So I think Georgetown could 100% cover a 9-point spread and 100% steal a bid and go to the NCAA tourney. I think that'd be crazy, and it's honestly probably what I'm rooting for in terms of the chaos. Let's see if there's any other games worth talking about. The last game that's really worth talking about, the Pac-12 final, Oregon State versus Colorado. Another bid stealer situation. Oregon State being 16-12 is not. I didn't think they had that good of a record, to be quite honest. I figured that Colorado is probably a safe bet here, but the fact that they played such a grueling battle with USC last night after getting up so big early is not a great sign. So I'll be staying away from that. And again, I would like to see Oregon State win just to see as much chaos as possible. So again, thanks everyone for joining. Please follow the Painted Lines at the Painted Lines on Twitter. Please follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter. And please follow at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Please subscribe to the Painted Lines on YouTube and Twitch. And let's have a Saturday, folks. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the winners.